This was voted on as a part of a Celtic medley over at my Patreon page. For the tab, as well as other tutorials, and to vote on what next month's song will be sure to check it out. Now I know technically this is not a Celtic song, but it was suggested by a bunch of different members, and I mean enough Irish bands have covered it. It has to at least get an honorary Celtic song label. I don't know. Still a beautiful melody, and we're going to work on a really fun chord melody version of it right here. So to get started, we're going to begin with a G chord. And on this G chord, we're going to fret it with our index finger on the 2nd fret of the C, ring finger on the 3rd fret of the E, and our middle here on the 2nd fret of the A. We're going to strum through the whole chord, and then we're going to play the 2 on the A 3 more times. And now from here, it's going to switch to a D chord. And to play this D chord, we're going to pivot our hand so that our index finger bars across the 2nd fret of the G, C, E, and A strings, and then add our pinky finger here to the 5th fret of the A so that we have a complete bar. It really helps when you're working on a bar like this to make sure that your finger is going all the way up to the fret wire to make sure that it will get a nice clean sound. If you're falling back like this, it can be tough to get a good tone. We're going to go through all 4 strings on that. Then we're going to play the 5 on the A again. And then we're going to play 2 on the A, which we just take our pinky finger off, and then open A, where we just remove our hand entirely. We're then going to go to an E minor chord, but this time we're not going to play a full chord. We're going to be playing our ring finger here on the 4th fret of the C string, and our middle finger here on the 3rd fret of the E. We're going to play just those 3 strings, being the G, C, and E strings, stopping our thumb here at the A. Then we're going to play the E string again. Then we're going to add our index finger here on 2 of the A. And then finally, for the last measure of this first bar, we're going to bar across our 2nd fret on the C, E, and A strings and stretch our ring finger here to the 4th fret of the G. So we have 4, 2, 2, 2. Now this bar is really tough. It's okay if you want to bar all the way across and take your other finger, your middle finger here, and kind of stack it over for reinforcement. And if you find that this is very difficult and you just can't quite get the sound, it's okay to just not play the G string and just play 2 on the C, E, and A. And oftentimes that can be easier. And play the 2 on the A again. So that whole first line sounds something like this. Now as we go forward, really difficult chord here, we're going to play all open, 0, 0, 0, but we're going to stop on the A string and play the open E 2 more times. Then we're going to add the 3rd fret on the E string. And I like to use my ring finger here because the next chord that's played is essentially a G, even though we don't play the A string. You'll see the 0, 2, 3 is going to be right there, using our ring finger here on 3 of the E and our index here on 2 of the C. Play that twice and then play the E string 2 more times after that. From here, going to an A7, simply slide your index finger down 1 fret, so it's on 1 of the C string, and then all open otherwise, so 0, 1, 0, 0, strum through that. Then open A again. And then this is one of my favorite chords. We're going to play 2 with our index finger on the G string, 2 on the E string with our middle finger, and 2 on the A string with our ring finger. And that's a tough one because we're squeezing a bunch of fingers in there, but 2, 0, 2, 2, and we play through it. We call that D13, just a really cool sound. And that sort of ends that line of music. So that line sounds something like this. I like to just hold that chord for a little while. Now you'll notice that once we've completed those 2 lines, it's sort of the first run through of the melody and there's some repetition to it. So if you're learning this song and it's a little bit difficult and you're struggling with it, it's a good idea to just practice those first 8 bars again and again and again until they're comfortable before moving on, because the next section is in a lot of ways going to play off of that first one, and you'll notice it gets much easier if you have some experience with that first section going through. So from here we're going to go on to the next section of the song. That's going to look something like this. So we go back to our G chord again, so fret the 0, 2, 3, 2, strum all the way through all 4 strings. Gonna play 2 on the A again and again. Then this time we're going to place our pinky up to 5 on the A. Now when we do this, you can take these fingers off because the very next thing is going to be that bar just like last time. Or alternatively, you can play the G chord with your index finger across the 2nd fret of the C, E, and A, your middle finger here on the 3rd fret of the E string. And what this allows you to do is when you go to the 5, it's a much easier stretch, and it facilitates the next chord, the 2, 2, 2, 2, 5, to be a little bit easier. So that's an option. So we've got the bar all the way across 2 with the 5, and then play the 5 2 more times. Go back to our E minor chord, just the partial one, so 4 on the C string with the ring finger, 3 on the E string with the middle. Play through those 3 strings being the G, C, and E. Then we're going to play 2 on the E string, so just remove the middle finger. Back to 3 on the E string, so take off the index, reapply the middle. Then 2 on the A with the index. Now what I actually like to do on that 2 is I like to bar right there and play that 2. Because the next line is going to require that 2 across the C, E, and A, as well as that 4 on the G, which, just like I mentioned earlier, we can remove and not play if that's tricky. But by playing the bar here on that very last 2, so starting from, we can actually make it much more efficient. See how by applying that 2 a little bit early with the bar, I don't have to set it up later. And then after we play through that, we're going to add the 3rd fret on the A string and then take it back off using the ring finger. That can be a tricky transition. Again, having the bar across with that ring finger up here is a really difficult chord. So if you're struggling with that, it's okay to practice it at first without that and gradually work it in. It's a flexibility thing, so you'll notice that it will feel impossible the first time you try it, maybe, and then over weeks of practice it starts to get a little bit easier. No matter how hard you practice it the first day, it won't ever feel possible, but just like touching your toes, eventually that flexibility comes with lots of practice for it. So that whole line now sounds something like this. And with the rhythm with this, there are rhythm markers, which you'll notice I'm not following as closely as I really should be. It's mostly because this melody has such a nice feel to it that I like to use what's called rubato, or playing with feeling, and sort of play the melody as you hear it in your head, as you interpret it. Don't worry too much about being super articulate with the rhythm, just because it's a song that wants to have that emotion come through. So let's go ahead and go on to the next measure here. We're going to start with a C chord, all open with our 3rd fret here on the A string, then our open E string twice, and then 3 on the E. I like to use the ring finger there because the next chord is a G, and I'm going to just not place the middle finger on the A string only because I don't need to. And then we're going to play the 3 on the E 3 total times that measure. Then we go to that same bar all the way across to 5 added with the pinky. And we're going to play the 5 twice, and then back to the G chord. We're going to play just the G, C, and E strings, stopping on the A. And now the next 2 notes of this measure, the 0 and the 2, are examples of filler. So we want to play those a little bit softer. So that whole line of music sounds something like this. See how softly I'm playing those 2 filler notes. And that's because they're not melody notes. As we go on to the next section, we'll actually see it starts off with an entire measure, or nearly an entire measure, of filler notes. So I'm going to play my 0, 2, and 3, which is basically a G chord, all nice and quiet. And then we play that A note, that open A, a little bit more loudly, because that's sort of the melody starting. And you can actually think of the G note, the 3 on the E, as the start of the melody if you'd like. Then we're going to go back to the C chord. Just our ring finger here on 3 of the A string. Back to a G chord, which we've been playing throughout the song. This time we want to start with the middle finger on the 2nd fret of the A right away. Then we're going to add the 5 on the A. And now this time we need to play that chord. So if this stretch is too much, which is a big stretch, what you can instead do is have your index finger barred across 2 on the C, E, and A, middle finger here on the 3rd fret of the E string, and our pinky here on 5 of the A. And even with your index finger, if you're playing a G chord, you'll want that bar, but in this particular case, when we're playing the 5 on the A, it's okay for that to not be barred all the way across, but rather just pressing on the 2nd fret of the C string. So we have 0, 2, 3, 5. And then the next moment there is we're going to play a D7, which is just barred all the way across the 2nd fret with the index finger. Add the middle finger here on 3. So that whole line is something like. Now jumping right into the next bar here, we're going to go to an E minor chord, all the way through, all 3 fingers in position. And then we're going to play what's called an E minor 7. And what that's going to be is we're going to take our middle finger place on the 2nd fret of the C and our ring finger place on the 2nd fret of the A and strum through that. So it's got this really nice descending feel. And then we're going to go to an A7, which we played earlier in the song. Play the open A 3 more times. Then play the A7 again, open E twice, 3 on the E, then open E. Notice how I just leave my index finger here on 1 that whole time. And then just add the ring finger here on 3 of the E string, take it back off. Then we're going to fret all the way across 2, and we're going to add the 3rd fret on the A string. Now, right now you just see these 2 notes, the 2 and the 2 on the C and the 2 on the E. But the following bar is going to be using the 3 on the A as well. So we just want to set up this D7 to start. And this is another moment of filler. So this whole bar of music sounds something like this. Now jumping right into the next bar, we're going to play 2 on the G, 3 on the A, then through a G chord. We're going to play the 2 on the A 3 times after that. Go to the D chord again, bar all the way across 2, pinky on 5. Then 2 on the A, just take away the pinky, take everything away for the open A. Go to that E minor without the index finger again. 2 on the E with the index, 3 on the E with the middle. You'll notice this is very familiar, much like what we played throughout it. Open A, So that whole bar sounds like. Going right in the next bar, we're going to add 2 across the C, E, and A, place the ring finger on the 4th fret of the G. That's that same B minor chord that we've been struggling through the whole song. And again, it's okay if that ring finger right there is very difficult to remove it and not play the G string and reintroduce it as you get more comfortable. But we're going to go ahead and bar all the way across there, and then 3, and then 2 with the middle finger, and then 2 on the E string. We're going to go through a C chord, open E twice, 3 on the E. I like to use the ring finger because the next measure is essentially a G chord, just without the A string. Play the E 2 more times. And then to end it all here, play 2 on the C twice, open E. Then we're going to play a D7 chord, but we're not going to play the A string, so it doesn't matter if we fret it or not. I like to just bar my middle finger here with the index and just not play the A. And then to finish it all that we do is play a G chord. And so that very last bar of the song sounds something like this. And there it is. So this is a pretty fun one. This arrangement is a very sort of typical chord melody in that you'll notice the melody notes are isolated with the chords providing a really nice, texture to them. And when I say they're isolated, I mean we never play the chord in a way that doesn't feature the melody note, meaning we always stop on it. So sometimes you'll notice the chord won't play the A string, and that's because the melody note will be on the E, so that we can get that one ringing last. So be sure to check out the other 2 songs that were done for this Celtic medley. There's also a tab that links all 3 songs together that you can check out over at my Patreon page. Again, if you haven't already, the link's down below. We're going to be voting on next month's song, and every month song suggestions are based on the members, and then they all get to vote and figure out what song we're going to work on that month. And so with this particular month, it became a Celtic medley, and I think the winner for September's tutorial is Autumn Leaves. So I'm going to get started on that arrangement pretty soon here. Looking forward to what people think of for October. So if you're watching this video past October, you can check out whatever was picked. So again, thank you so much for watching. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Please check out the links below if you haven't already, and have a wonderful day. Thanks.